Meeting will begin in 1 minute. Good evening. It is 6 p.m. We will begin. Welcome everyone to the NYCHA Federal Monitor Community Meeting. Tonight we are hosting the Queens residents. However, we have representatives from all over the city who have joined us, and we're glad that everyone can be with us. As we begin, I would first like to turn it over to Bart Schwartz to give a welcome and a brief update, please. Bart?
Thank you, Asha, and welcome everybody. We're getting, I think, maybe closer and closer to actually sitting around a table soon, which would be nice. But this is the safest way to do things, and it turns out to be fairly efficient. Although I'd much prefer to be with you. We'll be generally brief on what we have to say, because the primary purpose of these community meetings is to hear from the community. And so we don't want to take the time away from people who are online and waiting to ask questions. So I'm just going to do a few quick things. And then I think I turn it over to Asha, but if I'm wrong, Asha will, I'm sure, tell me. First, since we've last talked, one of the most exciting things that has happened for NYCHA is the passage of the trust by the state legislature and the signing of it by the governor. We've been asked lots of questions about the trust. I'm not going to try to be the one to explain all of it, and I haven't finished reading all of it, but I think I can. I do want to give you some essential elements of it. First of all, as we've said from the beginning, the trust is forward-looking. It is capital improvements that will make a real difference in the lives of the residents. Capital projects take time, and the HUD agreement is much more directed at the present. Money from the trust probably won't start being spent for another year or two. Obviously, that's not going to be a help to us. So we continue, as we have in the past, to look for ways for NYCHA to be more efficient in the work that it does, to get more bang for the buck, to be better organized, to be a better organization, which also prepares them for the day when money starts to flow through the trust. And it'll be important for them to maintain all the new equipment that will be coming in and so forth. But the metrics, the deadlines, the commitments made in the HUD agreement, commitments made by the city and by NYCHA, are not changed by the trust. So it's very important. It will have an impact, but the more immediate impact is what we need to do day to day. And that makes operations, as opposed to capital, such an important element of what we do. Now, in operations for the last number of months, I'm not sure how many months it is, but we've had the luxury of having Sherrod from HUD, in effect, loaned to NYCHA to help better organize the operations and oversee the daily operations. And He has a long and impressive resume in public housing and hands-on in public housing. And we've already seen the difference with his presence at as the chief operating officer. For lots of reasons, good reasons, there has to be a limit to the time he can be loaned to NYCHA. And that time is coming to an end. But fortunately, HUD has been able to work it out so that NYCHA will still have access and work closely with Sherrod through at least the end of November. I shouldn't say at least, through the end of November. And so we'll continue to have his expertise and access to him. Now, with his leaving, it's like a checkered game. This happens all the time in business and in society. One move causes another move. With Sherrod leaving as the chief operating officer, a new chief operating officer need to be named, and Greg Russ named Eva Trimble as the new chief operating officer, and Marvin Walton, who was the head of the borough head in Manhattan, he's become her deputy. So you can see it takes two people to replace Sherrod. That's how good he is. They'll be working with the in the role of the chief operating officer and the deputy chief operating officer. Plus, they'll have access and be able to work with Sherrod. That's a very strong office, and we're looking forward to everybody working together. Eva and Marvin's positions become effective July 25th, just around the corner. Now, with their leaving their positions, there'll be others to take the positions they now hold. I think I know who's going to be strategy and innovation replacing Eva, but I'm really not sure that it's been made public, so I'm not going to go into names. But the good news is that there are people to move up to take on these additional these new positions, and I'm sure that will be announced if it hasn't already formally been announced in some way. So that will happen. Now, some people have been concerned that we may lose a lot of people out of strategy and innovation to the operations, and therefore the implementation plan and other aspects of the work that we're doing could suffer. I want you to know I feel very comfortable that's not the case. That there are talented people who will move up into positions. In fact, I had a call with Greg Russ this morning, and I told him in my own business, I've never wanted to hold somebody back because they were doing a good job. When somebody's doing a good job, it's a chance for them to move up, and I feel the same way. I would treat NYCHA the same way I treat my own company and my own colleagues. So I feel comfortable with the next people to move into places, especially with the people leaving moving over from strategy and innovation more to the trust. They'll still be around, so it's not as if their learning and their advice won't be available. So to the extent that anybody has that concern, I don't really think it's a real concern. So I want to thank Sherrod for all the help he's given us, and I'm sure that he will be giving us. A couple of other things that I did want to talk about relating to the trust, the way the trust is organized. Everybody talks about it in terms of 25 billion, 30 billion, whatever the number is. I'm happy if somebody corrects me if I've got it wrong, but the fact is you have to do this in steps. You can't just automatically take every penny out of the trust system and start just spending it and buying things. It has to be done systematically. You have to learn how to do it the right way. So what you'll be seeing is, I think, if there'll be some early steps for much less than the 25, 40 billion, whatever number people are using. There'll be much smaller steps, significant amount of money, but smaller, to make sure that the systems are in place to manage that capital expenditure and the bigger capital expenditures down the line. So don't be surprised if the numbers are small, and don't be disappointed. That is a way to make sure that the money that does flow eventually is being used efficiently and effectively. And I'll tell you, right now, with the way the supply chain is, it could be cheaper in the future to be buying things than buying some of the things now. So don't be concerned if the number is smaller than you think. And again, that doesn't impact our work on the current problems that we're doing under the HUD agreement. I know I've used up my time. I did have a couple of other things, but why don't I turn it over to you, Asha? If we have a few minutes at the end or a break or something, I'll try to work some of this into the answers to any questions we have. I'll turn it over to you. Are you next, Asha?
Thank you so much for that update and the welcome. There's a lot of new things happening, a lot of big moves. So thank you for keeping us up to date on that. Next, I wanted to thank and acknowledge Representative from HUD, Alika Ampry-Samuel, for joining us this evening. Do you have any words that you would like to share?
Yes, thank you, Asha. And good evening, everyone. I wanted to just jump on and also bring greetings on behalf of Secretary Fudge, and just use this as an opportunity, just quickly, just to touch on some of the things that HUD is talking about, what we're working on, and to really explain to the residents my role here in New York City as it relates to the HUD agreement, because I am one that's on the ground every single day. And because folks remember me from my previous positions, I'm always asked about what's happening, what's going on. And I just wanted to just speak to the leaders quickly. So thank you. Bart mentioned the trust. And Bart, I like the way you put it, where it is talking about the future, but what's happening right now. And the agreement is really about the what's happening now. And I just wanted to remind all the residents that Secretary Fudge is very committed to what's happening right now and making sure that we are doing our part in our role to hold folks accountable and make sure that everything that's outlined in the agreement is actually moving forward. And so I wanted to remind folks that Secretary Fudge was in New York City and met with residents in December. We had another virtual meeting with residents in March, and then had another follow-up between March and April. And the Secretary is planning another visit, and we will be looking to meet with the resident leaders around not just the conversation of the trust, but also what are the accomplishments under the agreement. And we've also discussed things like Section 3 and just so many of the concerns that have come to the attention of the Secretary. So I just wanted to use this as an opportunity to remind everyone that this is of the top priority for the Secretary, and a lot of what I am doing is just making sure that we're listening and we're responding. And another piece I wanted to highlight is the fact that Mayor Adams put out his housing plan. And we were very excited to see NYCHA mentioned in the housing plan. But as we are talking to the City of New York, the mayor and the HPD commissioner and NYCHA and the chief housing officer, Jessica Katz, about the plans for the city, we're constantly talking about what's happening with the NYCHA residents in that footprint, in that plan every single day. And so we're all working lock in step to make sure that you have what you need in the future but also right now. And I just wanted to reiterate that. So thank you, Bart, for what you said and all that you're doing. And also on this call is folks from HUD. We have Jeff Evans, who's always at all of the meetings with the Federal Monitor. We have Director Luigi, PIH on the call, as well as Chris Ingram. So we're all here. So if there's anything that you need to know or want to reach out to me, I'm always available. So thank you, Asha, for the time, and I'm here for the duration of the meeting.
Okay. Thank you so much for joining us, and thank you to the HUD officials who are on the line. Thank you to the city officials who are on the line. Thank you to the resident association presidents that are on the line, and other board members. Thank you so much to the NYCHA officials who are on the line. We appreciate everyone joining, because most importantly, we have the Queens residents who are VIPs for the evening. In a moment, we'll be opening the mic for you to ask questions, make comments, etc. And then once we've heard from everyone who wishes to speak from Queens, we will open it up to residents from the other boroughs who are represented on the call this evening. So next, I wanted to turn to my colleague, Tamika Williams-Moore, who's also a Queens resident, to welcome you all.
Good evening, everyone, NYCHA residents and guests. Welcome to tonight's Queens Community Meeting. Queens leaders, we are at a crossroad with changes in resident leadership, NYCHA, and management. Tonight, I call on you all for your knowledge and your expertise to not only highlight the important issues, but also to offer solutions if possible, whether NYCHA says it's doable or not. Okay, with that, I want to give it back to Asha.
Thank you, Tamika. And now I'd like to turn to the Deputy Monitor, Dan Brunell, to continue giving us some more updates about the work that the Monitor team is doing, please.
Thanks, Asha. Sort of picking up where Bart kind of ended with regard to the organization plan and the neighborhood model. As some of you might know that have been on this meeting, that I'm on, that besides being the deputy monitor, my focus is more specifically on heating and elevators. And there've been some really, and I think exciting is probably the right word, developments in the last few months, the last 2 months in particular, with regard to some things that NYCHA is doing with Sherrod, the COO, and his chief of staff, Lauren Gray, and the heating department, to really restructure and remake HMSD after some pretty tough winters and summers in terms of preventive maintenance, getting ready for the winter, and just not really being prepared for the heating season, which we have a report that's going to be coming out soon. But the good news is that they've been working really hard to turn that around. We're already seeing in this summer heating season, which really started in April with the heat department's work to maintain, do preventive maintenance when they can shut down boilers and do thorough maintenance and cleaning, and also on other equipment. But the big change that we're seeing in terms of restructuring is really integrating the heat department into the neighborhoods. There are 30 neighborhoods that NYCHA has put together under the neighborhood model, so that the heating department is more integrated with property management at those developments. And a big part of this restructuring is also that they're getting substantially more staff, which they sorely need, both in terms of managers and the frontline workers, the HPTs that do a lot of the maintenance and repair work and respond to units that have that make no heat complaints to the complaint desk. So anyway, there's a lot going on. There's still a lot to implement. They're putting together a pretty robust training program, both long-term in terms of putting together a state-of-the-art heating lab, which will probably take at least a year to a year and a half to put together. But in the short term, they're putting together a very condensed course for both the current staff that haven't been able to be trained and also new staff that they're going to be bringing on. The monitor team is part of that along with HUD. And so, we're cautiously optimistic that we're going to have a much better summer and therefore a much better winter next year in terms of being able to provide heat to residents. So, Asha, given the time, if there's time at the end, I'm happy to talk about a few more things, but for now, I think that's good.
Thank you, Dan. Bart?
Yeah, thank you. I think Dan at the end hits what I wanted to focus on so that everybody gets a feel for how this works. Saying that there are going to be more employees doesn't mean that a problem is solved. It creates another new but good problem, and that is you want to train the employees. You want them to know how to do the work, and you want them trained by people who know how to do the work. So you have to have an integrated solution to the issues. It isn't as simple as saying add 100 bodies. We're also now working on how do you train those people? Are there different ways it can be done? Can we do it in groups? There are whole elements that go into it, and we're seeing progress on all those levels. There's been a lot of thinking going into how to get the training done so that all these people who are coming on board will really have an impact. And the training is everything from proper record keeping to actually doing the repairs. Because if you think about it, and this has been a problem in the past, but one that, again, NYCHA is really focused on. If the record keeping isn't accurate, then you don't know where the summer maintenance work should be done or where it's already been done. So that system and that diligence has also been increased. And that's another reason that we're feeling much more confident about the next winter. We can see the difference already in the work. Obviously, it'll be tested by the cold weather, but we've seen already the difference in the work and the competence level in what is being done. Thank you, Asha.
That part. Dan, I'm sorry, did you have anything else to add at this time?
No, I don't want to pick up something that you were maybe going to do, Asha, but I think it would be good to interview Andrew Darcy, who's on the call. I think this may very well be the first of these calls that he's on from NYCHA. I don't know if you want me to say a little bit about him. Of course, he can talk for himself, or you would, but he's going to be an important person on these calls, I think, going forward.
Yes, please make the introduction. We're glad to have Andrew Darcy on the line.
Yeah, so Andrew came on, I think Andrew was the end of April. He's kind of the new attorney at Strategy and Innovation. He's already got a lot of things going. Of course, he's had to have a cram course and learning everything there is about NYCHA. And I have to say, from my perspective, it's pretty astounding what he has picked up very quickly in terms of what's happening and what the issues are. So we certainly look forward to working with him going forward.
Thanks, Dan, and thank you, everyone. I'm sorry that my camera is not working. Otherwise, I would be on. But yeah, I'm thankful to be here today and to hear the concerns that the folks from the Queens Developments have, because at the end of the day, I come from a background where I represented tenants in eviction proceedings. And so, I came over to NYCHA specifically to work with this group to try to solve some of the systemic issues that have been going on for years. But fundamentally, it's about, making changes on the ground. And so I'm thankful for all the support that the Monitor team and HUD and SDNY are giving NYCHA. But I look forward to interacting with many of you to hear your experiences and your thoughts and opinions on things. So thank you all again.
Thank you for joining us, and please weigh in as comments and questions come up this evening from our resident guest on the NYCHA perspective and our response. Because as the Monitor team, we of course are in a different seat. most importantly, I want to acknowledge everyone on the line because we really need you to be an extension of the monitor team. You are our eyes and ears on the ground. You're the ones that see firsthand what's working, what's not working, what needs to be improved upon. Now we've been with you for several years, so hopefully you're seeing some change, and where you're not seeing change, that's what we also need to hear. So we're looking forward to having a fruitful discussion this evening. As many of you know, the topics that are focused on in the HUD agreement for the monitor team are really focused on heat, elevators, pest and waste, mold and lead, and organizational structure. Safety and security is not officially part of the HUD agreement, but it is such an important issue. We've been raising that concern, and we're pleased to have James Secreto from NYCHA on the line as well. So those issues can be brought forth and put on the table. So with that, I also wanted to thank and acknowledge the Controller's Office that's on the line, our City Council representatives who are on the line. Thank you so much for joining us. Dan, go ahead. Oh, I saw you unmuted, Dan. And then the other thing I wanted to talk about briefly before we open the mic is the work that the Resident Roundtable is doing. As some of you may know, there are over 30 members of the Resident Roundtable that were selected through a broad application process and then randomly selected to ensure a broad cross-section of NYCHA residents were represented. And they've worked tirelessly over the last year, meeting as a group once a month, meeting as subcommittees even more frequently. And they've done surveys, they've done tabling, they've gathered quite a bit of information from their fellow residents to inform a set of recommendations around several categories: quality of life, quality assurance, safety and security, and management practices. And so as a monitor team, we've also been listening in on those recommendations. They've presented last month a complete set of recommendations, as our understanding are now under consideration by NYCHA. And they are very, very good suggestions. So as we go about this evening, I'll also be asking you to weigh in on your thoughts on those 4 critical issues. So as you phrase your questions and comments, you can focus on the elements of the HUD agreement: heat, elevator, pest and waste, mold and lead, organizational structure, the additional topic of safety and security, quality of life, quality assurance, and management practices. Bart?
Yes, I wanted to add that I was actually at a wedding at the time of that meeting, so I didn't attend the meeting live, but I listened to the recording of the meeting over the next couple of days. And if I'm not mistaken, I think the meeting went for close to 3 hours. And it was 3 hours of substance and presentation by the various committees. And it was a very, very impressive groups of people working on different aspects of resident interest, doing their own research, doing their own surveys, and putting together their own PowerPoints to make the points that they wanted to make. And there were this very, very good discussions about the issues that were being raised and about the concerns that were being raised. And I'm assuming that the recording is available to others. I'm not sure, but if it is, it's worth listening. It's worth listening to it to see the effort that these committee members, without any help, intentionally without any help from NYCHA, they're doing it on their own. How well they did and hit the important issues. So if you can get to it, I'd say it's a worthwhile 3 hours.
Absolutely, it was very impressive, and most importantly, really astute recommendations based on the lived experience. So we're hoping to piggyback on those good recommendations tonight and hear good recommendations from all of you on things that you're seeing and experiencing. Reminder, please, that this is not the opportunity to talk about individual things that might be going on in your individual unit. We do encourage you to call the CCC number for that. And if you're not getting any traction or headway, please also call the monitor's office or email us. But tonight we really wanted to focus on systemic issues, things that you're seeing in your development as a whole, things that relate to the topic areas that you're seeing improvement on or lack thereof. That's really the focus of topics tonight. So with that, we are asking that you please raise your hand in the chat feature, let it be known that you would like to speak, and then we can move you over to the main room or the panelist room where you will be given the microphone. We ask that you please limit your comment initially to one main point or question, and then feel free to queue back up, get back in line to ask another question, but we'd like to get to as many folks on the phone as possible. So please ask one question and be brief. And I apologize in advance if it feels like I'm cutting you off. I'm just trying to get to as many speakers as possible this evening. So with that, we're right at time to open the microphone. And it's my understanding that Rashida Jennings is our first speaker. Please unmute and proceed.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Rashida Jennings. I am the Vice President of Pominack Resident Association. So I have joined just about every meeting that you guys have proposed. I am listening to all of these promises of changes. I'm constantly giving you my undivided attention. I am not seeing any of the progress that NYCHA is making. NYCHA is continuously, I'm not really sure what the federal monitorship is for, because we keep having these meetings, we keep on promising all of these changes, but NYCHA is continuing to mismanage the money. They're continuing to botch up the projects. They're continuously failing their community and their residents. Example that I'm going to give. On May 24th, I was notified by NYCHA that the development, that they were going to shut off the gas inside of several buildings. Pominack is made up of 35 buildings, 121 stair halls. So we all will get our gas risers changed at some point. There are several buildings and hundreds of tenants that are being affected at this point because they have no gas. They had a promise that the gas would be on in 30 days. That was May 24th. I received my notice. I know someone who had their notice on May 17th, someone that had their notice on April 24th. All of these people are still without gas. So what does the federal monitorship do? How is it helping in terms of, I understand that we're supposed to talk about heat, elevator, pest, waste, mold, and lead. However, those aren't the things that are affecting us every single day. They don't even give us the courtesy of giving you a notice to say that, you know what, something happened and the project is going to take longer. So I really want to know today, how many more of these meetings are we going to have before we see some real change?
Really good question. Bart and Dan.
No,
Yeah.
but you want to go first, Dan?
Yeah, why don't I go? So I think it might have been Tamika. Somebody yesterday or the end of last week brought this to our attention. So we looked into this, and I'm sure, Ms. Jennings, as you know, they are replacing, what we were told is they're replacing the gas valves at a number of the buildings in Pominack. So one of the things that and so we got some information, but not a lot of information. And I know it takes time both to do the work and then to get Con Ed and DOB are involved after the work is done to do testing and things and come back and give the approval to turn the gas back on. So one of the things that I'm going to do is reach out to the Queens VP and get more information and have them be sure to communicate effectively with the resident leaders at Pominack as to exactly what's going on, good, bad, or indifferent, just what's happening and what the timeline is.
if I might, because I think it's a legitimate concern that you raise, and I really want to talk about it directly. But there are some things that we do that are visible, and there are some things that we do that are not going to be visible, and certainly not visible immediately. So we're not responsible for the day-to-day operations. In fact, the HUD agreement specifically says that we're not responsible for day-to-day operations. But what we try to do, and we do, is to make the day-to-day operations more efficient and to be more effective. That's why we have the training. It's also, if we had the Carlton Towers had a problem recently, and there we had our own expert go and diagnose the problem for NYCHA to better understand how to fix the issue that they had there. And we were much more involved in the repair there than we are in most cases, but we wanted to accelerate the repair. Now, as a result of the work that we did at Carlton Towers, we noticed that there was a problem in the plans, what's called the scope of the plans, going back to the Sandy repairs. And we were concerned that the same flaw in the plans, or apparent flaw in the plans, was also at other developments. Something that we've done, and working with NYCHA, when they recognized the issue, is to see if there is a flaw at the other developments and to fix it before they have the same problems that Carlton Towers has. Now, that's not something that you're really going to see, but it's something where we're having an impact. I'll give you one other example, and here Chief Secreto has been just terrific in working with us and listening to us when we see things there. And I don't want to overstate this, but I do. But I think it is important. There are companies that are brought in, private companies, when let's say the water system in a development is not working properly, or the standpipe where the water to fight fires is not working properly. Then companies come in, and there are individuals whose job it is, they're really like fire marshals. It's their job to watch what's going on. And if it's in a building where there is no immediate water available, then they have a protocol they do to make sure that the people are safe and so forth. So we found that in before Chief Secreto came on board, that the fire marshals were often in developments where there was no water problem, but they weren't in developments where there was a water problem. Nobody was organizing how to use this resource, these vendor resources, to accomplish the goals. With the chief's office, we had discussions. We made some recommendations about a new position they might develop. I know that NYCHA, under Chief Secreto's leadership, has already advertised for this new position. It's not exactly what we asked for, but it's a great improvement. And it's one where the fire safety issues will be more centrally controlled and more effectively controlled, so that they're working where they're needed and they're not wasting money and being in places they're not needed. Now, again, that's something, maybe sometimes we don't do a good job telling you what we're doing, but that's something that's very important to us. Then I'll give you one more, which is a combination of things. But the ventilation systems, that the fans that have been installed in NYCHA, and Dennis Walsh, who's also on this call, can certainly add anything to this and correct me if I get anything wrong. But in this ventilation project, there may be some scientific differences as to whether better ventilation will reduce the harm of COVID and the spread of COVID. But there certainly seems to be scientific agreement that the ventilation improvement will reduce the mold that is in the bathrooms and in other parts of the apartment. That ventilation project was stalled, and through a lot of work of Dennis, but also with a terrific team at NYCHA, they got on the ball and they did a terrific job installing the new fans, inspecting old ones that could still work, finding that there was asbestos and dealing with that for the installation of the fans. And now, Dennis, what's the number? How many thousands fans have been installed, or total number or service now in service?
But NYCHA inspected over 8,400 fans. They kept a couple of thousand that were modern direct drive functioning units and replaced well over 6,000. And the great part about it is, in addition to installing the fans, they've also cleaned about 65,000 vents that allow the air to be drawn up by the new fans. And we've seen since the fall of last year a significant reduction in the number of new mold cases. It was as high as almost 1,700 new cases per month in October. And now we are in the 700 range. So this is really an example. I know this is not something that's instantly visible because this is system-wide, but this is a significant accomplishment by NYCHA, particularly the Office of Mold Assessment and Remediation, who handled all of the vendor relationships, all of the installations, all of the asbestos situations where there was asbestos coated material on the fan casings. And I think in my view, since I run the mold pillar, I'm a little biased, but this is just a significant accomplishment by NYCHA. And it shows what a great team can do when they have their attention focused on something, and it brings immediate or direct benefits to thousands and thousands of residents.
And, I mean this with affection, Dennis, he wasn't really a monitor, he was a pest. He stayed on top of this to make sure it got done. It got done the right way. So look, we're actually putting together a list of things that we're calling accomplishments and improvements, and we'll be sharing that. But I don't want you to think that they're not happening. They are. And also remember, and this is a key element of a monitorship, it's if we do the work for NYCHA, then they will never learn how to do it. So it's very important that our role help them learn how to do things so that when we leave, because there should be a beginning, a middle, and an end to a monitorship. And when we leave, it's important for NYCHA to know how to do it themselves, or to know which are the vendors that can do things effectively and rely on the best vendors. So I know it's a long answer, and I'm happy it's a long answer because there's a lot to say. And we'll do better. It's a line. It's a tough line for me to walk, which is sounding as if we're bragging about things, but also not wanting to do that, but also wanting to let you know what's going on. And we'll try to do a better job of that. We really will.
Thank you, Ms. Jennings, for that important question. And I'm glad that it got the lengthy response to highlight some of the behind the scenes work that's being done. I know it's very frustrating though, when you're not seeing the changes and improvements in the developments. So we hear you loud and clear. And I also wanted to highlight two other important things that came from your question, which is the importance of the communication and the timely notice for what projects are going on, what the timing issues are, where the delays might be, so that residents and resident leaders are apprised And also the importance of making sure that these critical repairs get done quickly and efficiently, because you can't go months on end without gas. So thank you for highlighting those important issues as well.
Yeah, I'd like to go back to that for a moment, because I didn't say anything about the communications. And it is very frustrating for us as well. I do not understand why presidents of the at the developments or others don't get notice about what's going to happen at their own development. It happens over and over again. And it's not something that we've ignored. We've really pressed hard. We'll continue to do that, but it's part of the service or lack of a service mentality. And one of the goals that NYCHA has set for itself in the implementation plan, which maybe we'll talk about, is the achieving a service mentality. When you do that, it impacts everything, and that it takes time to change that culture. You don't want failure to be acceptable. That's not it's unacceptable, and it takes time to change it. I really do believe I see changes taking place, but it's not always visible, and it's not in every area of what NYCHA does.
Really important, and we're seeing comments in the chat supporting how important the notice function is, and the fact that NYCHA hasn't been doing that effectively. So I hope NYCHA is on taking good notes for the comments and for the things in the chat. I want to turn now to Christina Chase, who's been waiting patiently to be our next speaker. Please proceed.
Hello, good evening. So I'm Christina. I'm from Ravenswood Houses. I'm also part of the board, but I just guess I want to second what Rashida said in terms of feeling like, and not just feeling, experiencing the lack of progress in terms of repairs and changes. I feel like it's actually gotten worse. For me, my apartment specifically, there's been multiple times this year where I've had no running water. Right now, I'll be lucky if I get cold water because it's extremely hot, which was ironically an issue when I had no hot water during the winter. And so I guess I have several questions. One being, what kind of preemptive changes can the federal monitor team do to ensure that management offices are not just waiting till something bad happens or an accident happens or a pipe explosion to happen, but can actually start implementing those changes preemptively? This includes pest control and waste management. I feel like it's worsened. And then I guess my other question, kind of to what Bart just shared, is what is the communication between this team and the management office if it's not clear and close? Because that's the whole objective, right? Is to ensure that they're being compliant. And then more specifically, what goals and benchmarks have been made and met for Queens developments that you can actually share with us today?
Very good questions. Dan,
Go ahead, Bart, and then I
was going to actually start with heat, because I think, I know you mentioned it and I did too, but I think it's worth mentioning again. Talk about preventive maintenance and how that led, or the lack of preventive maintenance led to the failure. So when you talk about what preemptive work can be done, that is already happening. And maybe, Dan, a couple of the pilot programs on elevators, particularly just because now it's taken us time to develop some metrics so we can measure the differences. Maybe you could talk about the metrics, just the simple one of inspecting an elevator visually or inspecting an
Actually
elevator
doing
and
work.
doing something. Yeah.
Yeah. So, not to tell anybody on this call that NYCHA has way too many elevators that are old and should have been replaced a while ago. And of course, that means that the elevator department has to try to keep these elevators running. So one of the things we've been doing, and the elevator division has been very cooperative, and we have a very good relationship, but trying to do everything they can to ensure that their preventive maintenance is actually effective, and that it's kind of directed towards the individual problems of the specific elevators they're working on, so that it'll work. So one of the things that we've been doing, our analytics team is, using the work order data, is has come up with a system where in a couple minutes, literally a couple minutes, for any given elevator, we can put in, elevators have what's called an asset number. Every elevator in NYCHA, there's almost 3,000, over 3,000, has its own distinct number. We can put that number into Maximo and get a history over the last 3 years of when actual maintenance work has been done versus just a visual inspection as one aspect of what we're working on. And it's really been very telling when we get an elevator that's had a lot of recent breakdowns or outages. We can do that analysis, and a lot of times we can see that the proper amount of preventive maintenance where something's actually been done, and a lot of elevator maintenance is cleaning or lubricating things to make sure that that's happening. So I think that's been pretty effective. But what I would like to do, you mentioned
Yeah,
problems.
Dan,
with
if I could just
Sure.
just expand on that a little bit. One of the statistics that I saw in one of the programs where we're using the analytics to try to get more out of the same number of people in the same
Right.
budget, is if you go into an elevator and you do a visual inspection versus going into an elevator and doing things, checking things, touching things with greasing, whatever it may be, just doing some things. It is a dramatic difference in the number of breakdowns that you get in the elevator. If you go in and just do a visual inspection, they're much more likely to break down than if you go in and you have a checklist of things you do, even if you can't see a problem.
Right. No, that's right, Bart. So with regard to the hot water issue, if you can provide, you don't have to do it sort of publicly here, but if you can get that to Floretta or somebody in our team, we'll look into what the particular hot water problems are at your development in your building and get back to you. So if you'd like us to do that, and we'd be happy to do that, if you provide that information, we can get that done first thing in the morning.
Okay, great. So we will follow up with you. Thank you for raising those important questions. And next I understand is representative from New York City Council District 28, Speaker of Adrienne Adams' office, Lynette.
Hi, good.
Please proceed.
Good evening, you all. Thank you for convening this meeting. I am listening in. Just let me preface anything I say with, this is my first time in this space, in this, around participating in this discussion. But I think listening a little longer than speaking sooner, I got a better sense of what this is about. But I need an understanding of the practical application of the monitoring team and the HUD agreement in layman's terms. So as the resident leaders are asking questions, even as I'm listening, the responses are extremely technical. So I would first ask if we can make this make sense in a practical way, that the resident leaders can leave this meeting and apply what you're sharing with them. So in other words, I have, longstanding inoperable elevators. What does that sound like? Where it's a practical application about what's going to happen next. So that was just my opening statement, but I'll give an example for where I am on behalf of the speaker. I am her representative over a project at one of the housing developments where I would imagine the issues of conditions for community centers would probably be a citywide issue here, give or take here or there. But I'm speaking on the Baisley Houses development where their community center has been closed for a long time. When we think about the mayor's efforts in the city of New York, the various agencies as a whole, DYCD, and the efforts to get our young people in community centers and get our young people to have access to opportunities, to have recreation and tutoring opportunities, all those great things that we all know what I'm speaking on. This housing development had their community center closed for a very long time. And I, as a rep for the speaker in the district office, am the coordinator with DEP and Department of Health, because there's a toxic odor that is so strong that even as we did a walkthrough, it was beyond imagination. So if I was to give you this case alone, and I believe I'm a newer staff with the speaker, but been working in government with another elected official, so I'm not new in that sense, but I believe it's been 10 years that this community center has been closed. So when we talk about a NYCHA monitoring team and a HUD agreement, how will that apply to, say, for instance, assisting even with the coordinated efforts I have with DOH and DEP to get in there and do an examination, an assessment, test for the air quality, and the facility is phenomenal. It's a 2-level recreation center sitting there and no one can go in because of a fume. So I'm just trying to figure out, after all that I said, how does this apply your efforts with getting this situation resolved?
If I might, the example of a community center is an excellent example. I think it was before the pandemic. There was the Department of Health shut down the community center and the I think it was a Head Start center as well at the Jackie Robinson houses because the conditions were so bad with the rats and the mice, and it was terrible. So people came to us and asked, well, what can you do about it? So we went and we determined we're looking for systemic solutions, not just individual solutions, but obviously we want the individual solutions as well. But on the systemic solution, it turned out that for most of the community centers in NYCHA facilities, there were no MOUs stating who was responsible for cleaning and repairing and taking care of the center.
So you would have to tell me, what is an MOU, sir?
A memorandum of understanding.
Okay,
between-
thank you.
So, so let's say it was let's say it's in Jackie Robinson, but another organization is running the center for the children. There was
Okay,
no-
sir, tell me how your efforts will apply to the Baisley houses scenario I just shared, sir.
Well, we should know, what we should do is look into it and see if they have entered into an agreement for that one, because NYCHA committed to enter into agreements for these centers when they realized that they didn't have agreements about who was going to care for them.
Okay, so will a rep reach out to me, or is it someone I can reach out to get the assistance in coordinating these efforts that are already active?
Well, I think you've given us enough information, but I still think we'll follow up with you tomorrow, and let's get the details, and then we'll find out whether there's a memorandum of understanding about who has responsibility for caring for this.
Okay, that would be huge, and I appreciate that on behalf of Speaker Adrian Adams and the Council District 28. Thank you so much.
Sure.
And we have your contact information.
Yes, I put
Very
it in
good.
earlier. Did
Very
you
good.
have it? You have it?
I'm sure Floretta or Asha has it, so that's great.
Okay, I look forward to hearing from someone tomorrow. Thank you so much.
Most definitely. And if there's no memorandum of understanding, that's a different problem. We have to find out why.
Okay, very well. Thank you so much. I
Thank
appreciate
you.
the time here.
Loretta, who's next, please?
Cynthia Tibbs is on the line. Cynthia, can you unmute?
Yes, I'm unmuted. So my name is Cynthia Tibbs. I'm the TA president with Sir Brownstones on the Upper West Side. Mr. Schwartz, your entire team met with all 8 of us presidents a while back before Wise Towers got thrown into RAD. So we have two issues, but they are related. comes to TA president's recognition, all right, recently CCOP has been permitted by HUD to change their bylaws, which have now made us people in the subdivisions under DCOP null and void. We can't even run for positions under CCOP. We have asked, where's HUD? Where's Ms. Samuels? Where's Ms. Fudge? Why were these issues allowed to take place during a pandemic without informing us presidents that we can't run for positions under CCOP? And we have gotten no answers because no one will put HUD on a call with us. That's why I'm on here, Ms. Samuels, because they're making all these decisions and saying, oh, but HUD approved it, and we can't run for anything. How are we supposed to ever get people in CCOP to be removed or expanded if the lower TAs are not recognized anymore? We have no voting power per se. We're not even considered councils anymore. We're considered committees with no recognition. That's unacceptable. As far as our roles and why NYCHA doesn't communicate with us, if we can't get HUD to communicate with us, how are we supposed to get NYCHA to communicate with us? That's damn near impossible. We had a ratification program up in my development. It started off great. They were laying down pebbles, they were laying down chicken wire and then putting mulch. And then what happened? The workers got lazy and only threw the mulch down and decided to do away with the chicken wire and pebbles. So now the rats are jumping all over the place. I've advised NYCHA about it, but guess what? Now that Mr. Walton is up and moving out and everyone's shifting to higher paying positions, us TA presidents that are volunteers are left to still deal with rats. And it becomes frustrating when we constantly see these federal monitors that get paid over $500 an hour. And here we are, we're the grunts out here doing all the work and no one recognizes us. No offense, but it gets frustrating.
No one gets over $500 an hour, but I'll leave the rest of it.
Okay, well, then maybe you should discuss that with Greg Smith at the city, because that's what he quoted your salary as, but we get no salary. We get no salary. We get zero recognition. HUD's not recognizing us anymore. NYCHA could care less about us, but our residents call us 24/7 every day with issues that are going unresolved. And that's the bottom line.
Good points, Ms. Tibbs. Who would like to respond? We do have HUD on the line, so thank you, and perhaps they can address this as well.
Well, hi, Ms. Tibbs. The only thing that I can address is the fact that I'll give you a call tomorrow so we can find out exactly who you spoke to at HUD and what is happening. I was under the impression that an email was sent, and I think Sherrod may have responded to the email, but I'll definitely give you a call tomorrow so that we can hash this out and see how we can.
All of us presidents have been mandated to these DCOP meetings lately. All of us. Half of us are on this call now. Mr. Allen's on this call. Ms. Eldon's on this call. All of us have been brought into all these meetings and told how you can't run for a CCOP position because HUD gave approval in the new bylaws that were done during the pandemic that only DCOP presidents can run for a CCOP position. That's absurd. That just ensures that people like Danny Barber and Reginald Bowman never get moved out.
Okay.
That's not fair.
Okay, thank you.
So Ms. Tibbs, we'll have a conversation tomorrow?
I'm always available. My phone rings, I answer. Okay, and as far as the rats go, that's never going to be solved as long as they're allowed to buy materials and stockpile them and not use them for what they're supposed to be used for. We can't get rid of rats if chicken wire and pebbles don't go down first and then the mulch goes over them. Putting pretty mulch over dirt does nothing to stop rats if chicken wire and pebbles aren't applied. So what was the sense of purchasing them?
Really good points. I'm not sure if we have a representative from the Pest and Waste Group that can address those protocols, but we'll certainly take notes on that. And we have your contact information to follow up. Thank you for that important question.
Well, there is an element that as I said, we're not doing day-to-day work. You don't want us doing that. You want NYCHA doing the day-to-day work. But one thing that is lacking and also is being addressed in the implementation and organizational plan is the failure to have sufficient inspections of the work that is done. And I know that one aspect of it that early on, I asked NYCHA to start doing surveys of the residents after work was performed. So NYCHA would know whether the work was done properly or not. And NYCHA was against that. I'm happy to say they've come around and they're now working on a program where residents will have an opportunity to comment on the work that is being done, on the courtesy of the employees. And I would hope that would make some difference in being able to understand where the problems are and where the poor work is done. And that would go for vendors as well. I'm not saying that this is just employees. You want to know which vendors are doing the job and which ones aren't. But I would hope that by communicating, and again, I know a lot of it is communications, but if NYCHA can at least take the first step and get the responses from the residents as to what they see and what they hear and what's left behind, then they can start to take control over the service mentality and the quality of the work that's being done. And there's a lot to be done there. I agree.
Thank you for that response. And I see that we have representatives from the CAC on the line with their hands up. But if I could ask for your patience.
Could you explain the CAC to everybody?
The Community Advisory Committee, which is a committee that the monitor team has convened, which is representatives from the varying boroughs, as well as City Council, City Hall, NYPD, the Fire Department, DIFTA, DYCD, and community associations that are represented. And we have a roundtable meeting to discuss issues and to make recommendations that's live streamed on YouTube every other month. And so I see representatives Robert Hall and Lilith Lozano, Nancy Ortiz, and Manny Martinez on the line. But I'm going to ask you please to hold your comments or questions, because I want to be sure that we continue to hear from as many Queens residents as possible. And I understand that Eugenia Gibson is next, please.
Asha, could I please first break in? Because people are asking what is happening and what is being done. I'd like to at least give an example of something that the CAC has accomplished. The CAC has been extraordinarily successful. And when Alika Ampry-Samuel was in City Council, she sat on the CAC and was also very active and very helpful. But I'll just talk to one issue, which I heard from the first day that I was appointed, and that is that the fire department is always breaking down doors. Why are they always breaking down doors? And the response from the fire department was, well, we didn't have key fobs, or we didn't have keys. We brought that up to the CAC, and as a result of the work that was done at the CAC and having a representative of the fire department, now every firehouse has fobs and keys for the developments in their area, but also in neighboring developments in case it's a multi-alarm fire, or if the one firehouse is busy, another one can cover it. And also, and I think this is probably very important, if a door is damaged, that has to be reported to the senior people at the fire department who damaged the door, and an explanation as to why it was damaged. Now, it may not sound like a lot, but I got to tell you, I heard it from everybody in every development I went to. It's not in the HUD agreement. There's nothing about doors. There's nothing about the fire department. But this CAC heard a problem and it's one of the ones that it helped resolve. And from what we understand, it's taking hold. And I'm sure it's not perfect, but it's a big improvement.
That's a great example. And fortunately, we have many more great things that the CAC representatives working in partnership with NYCHA and working with city partners have been able to put forth. If time permits, I'll talk to some more of those things in a moment. At this time, I'd like to turn the mic to Genia Gibson.
Hey, good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Okay, my name is Eugenia Gibson. I am the resident council here, president at Beach 41st Street in Far Rockaway. Sorry for getting on the meeting a little late, but I was on another meeting, but I'm here. I would like to just go over some of the issues that we are having here at Beach 41st Street. One of the big issues that we have is our elevators. I'm putting in complaints all the time about the elevators. The elevator, we know that, NYCHA is talking about a money issue, but the building's been up since 1973. We have not gotten new elevators. The elevator repair guys are here, if not every day, every other day. The elevator door open, before it can open up good, it's closing people up. Okay, the seniors, the children, myself have got caught up in the elevator. Somebody is going to get hurt. Okay, this is a very big safety issue. It was reported to management. The new superintendent that we have here, Aaliyah Evans, was caught up in the elevator herself. So not only was she told, she got caught up in the elevator. This is a big problem that we're having here. Pests. We have an infestation that's been going on for some years now of these big water bugs. Okay, they're all in the lobbies, they're in the walkthroughs, they're coming into our apartments. I don't know what's going on with the exterminator. You see them sometimes, you don't see them. We have the mice that's about to run you out of your apartment. Okay, this is not good. It's like an invasion of these bugs, and they are big. They are big. They're running us out, even in my office. Every morning that I go into my office, if I'm not sweeping 10 to 15 of these things laying on their back, I'm not sweeping up none. Okay. I don't even see how the workers are working inside the room to collect the garbage. It's so many of them. Who's inspecting it? The supervisors or whatever? I don't know who's supposed, well, I do know who's supposed to, supervisors are supposed to go behind and check out what's going on. Okay. This is it's bad. It's bad for us tenants, and not only the tenants, the workers.
Good points. Dan,
okay, we have a vendor that comes that do the heat and the hot water. For the last couple of weeks, okay, when they have a sign out that we're not gonna have no water, okay, the water don't go off. When there's no sign, the water is off. We don't have hot water, okay? Then one day we didn't have no water at all. No notice. When the notice went up, it was like in the mid part of the day. I'm hearing that it's a pipe emergency come. Listen, I mean, we understand that things happen, but these are not new things. These are things that need to be fixed. But in the interim of it, we are the ones that's suffering from it. We're suffering.
And I'm seeing a note that the same thing is happening in Ravenswood, and the chat is lighting up. Is there any response to this?
I don't know if this is really a response, it's something we obviously should be looking into. I was going to suggest that we call Ms. Gibson tomorrow. Let's get the name of the vendor. It's probably a vendor doing the extermination. And you said there's a vendor for the heat and hot water. Let's find out who's doing the work or not doing the work more accurately. And who's checking on this, and why is it continuing?
Yeah, and so Ms. Gibson, with regard to the elevator issue, is there a particular building number you can give me? It turns out I have a meeting with the elevator division tomorrow morning, and I can get more information.
Okay, building 438.
So it's 438.
Okay, actually,
Is that 438 Beach 41st Street?
yes, Beach 40th Street, 438 Beach 40th. I spoke with a gentleman that's a supervisor by the name of Mr. Curry. I believe it was either Thursday or Friday. I spoke with him. He was on the elevator. You know, he had on a ID, and I asked him, did he work for NYCHA? He said, yes. I asked him what department. He told me elevator. I said, oh, well, you're the perfect guy that I need to speak with. I said, do you see anything that's going on with the elevator? And he just looked at me. I said, really? Do you see anything? I said, you're not noticing how fast the door is closing? He said, oh, yeah, you're right. I said, exactly. But you supervisor, and you're over the elevator. Are you checking it? You know, so he told me he called the office to see if there was any complaints in. And he said no. And I was really surprised that even Miss Evans, again, that's the super, didn't put it in because she got caught up in the elevator. So how are you not seeing these tickets? Because I called myself and they didn't see anything. So anyway, long story short, whoever he spoke to, he told them to put in a complaint, and I guess they're gonna come check it out before somebody gets their shoulder or arm broke, because this is what's gonna happen.
Ms. Gibson, thank you for highlighting this, because as we know, and as we're hearing, these are problems, it's systemic, it's all over. So thank you. And we'll also have someone follow up with you directly as well.
Okay. And another problem, bad problem that we have had for a long time, the sewage, the raw sewage that comes out. Okay. I emailed the manager 2 days ago. I emailed him telling him, do you see the water coming up from up under the ground? It's going down the sidewalk again. I haven't got a response back from him yet. And I'm really surprised because me and the manager has a good relationship. But when you start seeing this water coming up, the next thing is it's gonna come up in the lobby, and we gotta walk through feces. When I tell you feces, it's feces that we have to walk through. Okay.
Building is this, Ms. Gibson?
438. 438.
Okay, we'll also have our pest and waste team follow up as well, and coordinate with NYCHA.
Okay, I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for your comments and speaking up this evening. Floretta, next, please.
Corinne Wood Haynes, please unmute.
Hi, good evening, everyone.
Good evening, Ms. Wood Haynes.
Good to see you all. I am the president of Queensbridge Houses. And as we all know, it's the largest housing development in the country and one of the first housing developments. I got a couple of quick issues that I want to just bring to the table. One is, speaking about a systemic issue, I'm a little concerned with why we don't already have a procedure in place that assists the assistant supers and supers with verifying the work being done by maintenance and or vendors. Something in place if they have, NYCHA has these online portals and you can download an app. Why is there not already a system in place that for checks and balances that would allow residents to verify and comment on repairs, and something in place to help management to be able to verify the work being done, and a better system for monitoring the vendors' work. Although I believe that they should be physically coming out and checking the work as you would if it was done in your home. A lot of upper management is in a position to live in homes. You wouldn't have a contractor come in your home and leave the glue on the floor from the tile they just put down, things of that nature. Those examples is one of the things I want to address. One of the other things,
A good suggestion. Go ahead, please.
yeah, I think that's very important, because one of the systemic issues is accountability. And
Thank you. Accountability is the key.
it's sad because accountability starts from the top. Accountability don't come from the bottom. The accountability comes from the top. So you report up. And if there's no reporting up, or if there is a reporting up, either way, either the people don't care at the top about what's taking place at the bottom, or there's no one accounting for what's being done at the bottom. And then as resident leaders, we're tasked with the job of de-escalating residents and trying to empathize and trying to sympathize and help them to understand something that's not being communicated to us in reference to repairs or the lack thereof. It's just the accountability, the lack of accountability.
I'd like about the accountability, and maybe, I don't know how much time we have, but again, the organizational plan that is being written, which will be part of how NYCHA works with the neighborhood plan, but a major part of the organizational plan is accountability and how to achieve accountability and responsibility for the work that can be done. That's that we brought in experts who have advised other public housing authorities to help NYCHA draft the sections of this implementation plan, so that accountability will be a key element of it. If you don't have accountability, you'll be back where you were before.
So I'm glad you mentioned that, because as a resident leader and as resident leaders, I'm sure I would think that it would be important to get some feedback from leadership who's been on the ground doing the grassroots work to maybe give some input on suggestions for ways of improving accountability and communication. And that's just the idea I have in reference to, you said they're bringing in these professionals.
We brought them in. The monitor brought these.
No, I get it. I completely understand what you're saying. But what I'm moving toward is, has it been considered to get input from these leaderships who've been, like I said, on the ground and sees, like, I'm very hands-on.
Sure.
And
the answer to that is yes. And that's something we saw from the beginning. And that's why we have a field team of approximately a dozen former NYPD detectives who are, even during the pandemic, they were out visiting the developments, and they spend time talking to the residents and talking to workers. And we've now developed I forget the names of the WAMA, and what is the other one called?
Well, the fast field reports.
We do reports now with photographs of what we see, and that information goes to NYCHA.
Right, particularly if it's an emergency situation, a leak, a serious safety issue that needs immediate attention. Things like that.
We're already demonstrating ways that they could get people to be more accountable now, and we've got to continue to press them to do that. We created this intellectual property, which we're ready to give to NYCHA. In fact, we've already had discussions with them so that they can have this, they can use this software to be able to, on a real-time basis, identify with a scale system about the cleanliness of a development from 1 to 5, and with photos and with descriptions, and it's had an impact on developments, because we know when we go back, it's cleaner, and we also hear from the people at the development that it's cleaner. That's the kind of systemic system we need to leave behind and have NYCHA controlling and using effectively.
And I
Mr.
wanted to
Mr.
highlight-
Schwartz, 1 second, ma'am. I think he missed my point, because the point I was making mirrored the comment in the chat that we should be speaking to the presidents. It should include the
Yes.
presidents. That's the point I
That's
was
what I wanted to highlight, that our monitor team, we call all of the presidents before each one of these meetings. All of the Queens leaders should have gotten a call, and then we start, after we finish Queens, if that's the upcoming meeting, then we start trying to get through all of the presidents for the rest of the city every time before we have one of these meetings, so that we know what your issues are, what your concerns are, to encourage you to come to speak out at this meeting. And I also wanted to emphasize that, you know, feel free to call us, email us, keep in touch at any time. You don't have to wait for one of these meetings or a formal call from us to let us know what you're seeing, hearing, experiencing. Would like to talk.
And our team, our people out in the field, they talk to the presidents, because they tell us what the presidents are telling them, and they communicate it to us. Tamika, I don't know what experience you've had. You know, Tamika's a resident and is on our monitor team.
Right, so I just wanted to add that, yes, we are out in the field. We do speak to resident association presidents in various developments. We also have another intellectual property, which is a resident engagement form that we use when we go out to meet the resident association presidents and or the entire board. Sometimes it's only the resident association president, sometimes it's other people on their board. So we do have that mechanism that we are using, going out and gathering that information from the resident leaders in the communities.
It's probably because I'm new. I haven't had my opportunity yet, which is okay with me, because like I said, I'm new. I've only been here since March.
Well, I'm glad. No, I think I'm glad you raised it, because it is. We agree with you. It is a critical element in this, as I said, from the beginning, we asked NYCHA to have a system for residents to rate the work being done and so forth. They've now come around. They say they're going to do it. Haven't done it yet, but they have said they will do it, and we'll stay on top of it until they get it done.
Thank you so much.
I'm sorry, Ms. Haynes, if you would like, we would visit your development and actually do a resident engagement form on your development as well, okay?
Thank you so much.
And I saw some other developments in the chat that we haven't visited personally or in a while, or even if we were there, perhaps we didn't talk to the current leaders. So we will continue to make the rounds. I saw that we only have time for perhaps one last comment. Mr. Martinez, who is from Queens and also a representative for Queens on our Community Advisory Committee, the CAC. I see you've been patiently waiting. Please proceed. Did I lose him? We may have lost him when he was trying to unmute. Floretta.
That's too bad, because he always has something interesting to say. He's
okay. Here he goes.
Can we get him back?
He's back.
There he is. Okay, good.
I'm here. Good evening, everyone. Good evening,
Evening.
Mr. Schwartz, Ms. Williams-Moore, Mr. Brownell, Ms. Mardrow, Ms. Ampry Samuels. Always a pleasure to see you. So good evening, everyone. What I do want to say is what the Federal Monitor's intention was to oversee NYCHA do the work. 3 years, since 2019, so we are in the 3rd year, and NYCHA still continues the mismanagement practices that has plagued us for so long. especially when you're looking at the pillars that are focused on the agreement. Pest control and heating recently. And if we don't catch them, then this continues. It is to the point that we have to be on guard to catch it. And if we don't, it becomes just commonplace or normal practice. I've had such situations where pest control, IPM, the whole IPM procedure where they're supposed to close up all of the holes and entry points, outlets, and behind the cabinets, that has been engaged with by taking the sticky traps and sticking them to the walls to close up the holes. I've seen where heat problems will be reported, and they would come in with a thermostat, a picture thermostat, take a picture of the thermostat, forgive me, that they utilized for another apartment because they got caught not visiting the apartment the way they were supposed to. Now, these are just, instances that we see, and it continues to plague us. What I would like to engage in is a conversation of how do we address that workplace culture? How do we address that mindset, right? And I always bring this point up, the fact that we have to consider that NYCHA had suggestions on how to deceive HUD in its official training manual for our population of 500,000 people to see a quasi-government agency put strategies and tell their employees that it's okay to engage in these types of practices. That now that even with the federal monitor, they have habituated that to the point that they continue the practice without any disregard. And I've also heard from, and this is something that goes through like employment, if you do bad, you get promoted. If you do good, you will get demoted or you will get fired. And if we still have that consistent now with all of this oversight, not just from the federal monitor, but HUD being engaged, then our concern is that we are being leveraged for the opportunities being presented instead of us being taken care of as we should be expected. And so with that, I thank you all and I yield, and I wish you all a great evening.
Asha, can I say something?
I'm sorry, Mr. Hall has been.
I know, but I want to respond to Mr. Martinez. So, Mr. Martinez, when you hear of or have any information about things like that, you mentioned, heat people using a temperature from another apartment, things like that that are clearly fraudulent. If you would let us know right away, and as much information as you can provide, then, there are things we can try to do to get to the bottom of those individual issues.
That's even more than that. We've used some of the analytics to try to identify which workers were doing things like that. So where we can identify it, we do. But let's let Mr. Hall.
But just in brief, though, I have like the accounts that I'm telling you have been addressed by the compliance department in NYCHA, as well as the federal, as well as when even Vito was here. But I'm saying that the fact that it continues is the problem. So, but thank you so much.
Okay.
Yes, and please, everyone know, you're the eyes, and please report anything you see like that. Mr. Hall, thank you for patiently waiting. We are over time, but I ask you to please make one brief point.
Okay, I hope you can hear me. First of all, it's been very interesting. I want Aliko Ambrose Samuel to know that I need to get Marsha Fudge up into the North Bronx section because 44% of the developments have been privatized and we haven't had a meeting in over 2.5 years. So it's urgently necessary that the presidents in the Northeast Bronx have some type of communication dialogue as far as HUD is concerned, all right? I also want to state very quickly that I am very happy with the monitor and what they've done. The monitor's position is to monitor. That is the elephant in the room. And what happens is this, the systemic issues that go on in all 5 boroughs, all right, get reported. And everybody has to justify their circumstances with those 90-day notices that each agency has to submit. And folks don't understand that because we're all looking for a quick fix, a quick answer to our problems. But it's systemic, it takes time. So keep doing the good work. I want to thank you, Bart. Asha, I want to thank you for being heard. All right. And last but not least, for DCOP, in order for you to unseat anyone in CCOP, you have to be a DCOP rep. And that election is coming up July 19th and 26th. And if you survive that, then you can go into CCOP. And I believe Ms. Tibbs needs to be made aware of that fact. I yield. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And last, but thank you for your patience, Ms. Lozano, who's had a hand up for a long time.
Yes, I have to clarify that. Yes, we didn't have meetings for 2 years, but we were all in a pandemic unless there was another planet anyone else was on that I didn't know about. I did go to most of the respective developments in the North Bronx. We did have a meeting, and community development was very, very conscientious about my requests. And a lot of those resident leaders that all of a sudden, by Mr. Hall's account, they didn't know anything about it. That is not true, because CCOP worked vigorously with the powers that be. And I did go to the respective developments. Unfortunately, Mr. Hall wasn't available for those, but Mr. Edwards was. And we did go to Betances, and we did go to all these other places. So I'm really interested to know on this call on all 5 boroughs, if there wasn't a resident leader that didn't get notified, whether it was in the Queens or in the North Bronx, I'm really interested to know who they were, because we did have meetings. And I'm going to rebuttal it, because we did have meetings and the residents already signed on the dotted line, the ones that decided to be RAD. That was a decision that they made. And I was privy by Jacqueline Tin and everybody else, from Simon to everybody else from Leroy Williams. So I just want to make a clarification that they were notified resident leaders that were ready to be part of it. And the ones that left the district decided that they wanted to pursue doing their own thing for their own respective development. So like I said, I want everybody to be fair with anybody who sits in DCOP and is part of it and knows exactly. And the ones that are in CCOP that I work with on a weekly basis, including Manny and everybody else, we have been reaching out. So I'm interested, if Mr. Hall wishes, he has my number to call me on what developments, because according to what I'm hearing from Mr. Leroy, we've met with them, the ones that were concerned. And by January 2023, they are going to be part of RAD, and they're not going to be part of the district. So let's make that clarification. With that being said, I yield the floor.
Thank you.
It's
so
always
much,
a
Ms.
pleasure
Lozano.
to be in your calls. Thank you.
For your help. We appreciate you
You're
responding on behalf of CCOP. So with that, I wanted to make sure we shared our contact information and upcoming meetings, because most importantly, this is just one meeting, but we want to stay in regular touch. So we have our next Community Advisory Committee currently scheduled for August 9th. That's a Tuesday. That will be live streamed. If for some reason that meeting doesn't go forward, we will keep you posted on our website. And we have the Bronx Community Meeting, which is definitely scheduled for Tuesday, September 13th. There'll be another forum like this where Bronx residents will have be our VIPs to have the floor first to highlight their issues and concerns, but the entire city is open to attend and to speak up as time permits. So please keep in touch with us. We post updates on the NYCHA Monitor website, nychamonitor.com. You can email us at monitor@nychamonitor.com. Even if you don't get an immediate response, please know that every single email does get read and routed to the person responsible for that issue, and then it gets communicated to NYCHA. And you can also call us anytime. We have a phone number and a toll-free number, 347-809-5555. So our team will follow up with you if we said we would, especially this evening. We're also taking notes from all of the comments and all of the comments in the chat so that we can stay on top of these important issues. And we thank you for your time and your commitment to making NYCHA better. We know it's really frustrating to not see significant change in each of your developments. We ask you to please keep us posted on what you're seeing and what you're hearing, because as the monitor, we're hearing things from a lot of different angles, but we need you to tell us the truth of what's what, so that we can help get to the bottom of recommendations to strengthen the protocols and processes behind all of these things to make it better going forward. So with that, Bart, did you have any final remarks?
No, I probably did enough talking. But I want to thank everyone who participated. I always find these meetings helpful. Not always hearing the best things, but that's what we want to hear. If there are places we have to put in more energy, I think we know which ones they are. But it's good to hear it and to be reminded. So I thank you for all participating.
Really important. And I know we're over time, but there's one other thing I wanted to mention with regard to the work that the CAC, the Community Advisory Committee, is doing. One of the things that Alika Ampry-Samuel had recommended early on was that there be a tracker so that the projects, the capital projects and the construction projects, et cetera, that NYCHA is working on, that there be easy transparency for the community and residents to be able to see what's going on. And that's something that we championed on the CAC. That's something that NYCHA committed to doing. So there is a beta version of a capital tracker online. If you go to NYCHA, you will find it. The NYCHA website, you'll find it, and it's still in test phase. So please note how it's working, any comments you have for improvements, and know that you can go look up your development, see what projects are in progress, what stage they're in, what the funding sources were, et cetera. So that's something that, again, is kind of a behind the scenes thing, but we think that information sharing and that transparency is critical. So if you could please be part of that beta test and get back to us on your thoughts on that, that would be really appreciated. So please keep in touch, please stay safe, and thank you all. Good night.
Good night, everyone.